Welcome to the Dume Media. Today we're diving into a really fascinating story. In the heart of India, there's a semi-arid, landlocked district that is, against all odds, becoming an economic powerhouse. We're talking about Jalna, a place with a dual identity that's going to surprise you. It's a real master of reinvention. So, here's the big question, the central puzzle we're tackling. How on earth does a dry, landlocked region get famous for two things that seem like they're from completely different planets? I mean, heavy steel manufacturing and cutting-edge agricultural science? It just doesn't seem to add up, right? Well, that's the paradox we're going to unravel today. All right, so to really get a grip on Jalna's surprising present, we've got to take a quick look back at its past. You'll see that its modern identity is really built on this deep foundation of strategic importance and, some major historical shifts. Jalna's history isn't just a few decades old. It's long and really layered. We're talking way back to the 12th century, when it was key territory for ancient dynasties like the Yadavas. Fast forward to the 17th century, and it becomes a prominent Jaghir, that's a land grant under the mighty Mughal Empire. Then things get really interesting when it becomes the stage for a world-changing battle. But believe it or not, it wasn't until 1981 that it was officially carved out as the independent district we know today. Okay, let's zoom in on that battle I mentioned because it's a huge deal. The Battle of Asai, this all went down in 1803, right in the middle of the Second Anglo-Maratha War. And this clash, fought on Jalna's soil, was one of the most pivotal moments, a real turning point in the expansion of British power in India. And to really get a sense of just how important this was, just listen to this. That quote is from none other than Major General Arthur Wellesley, the guy who would later go on to defeat Napoleon at Waterloo. Here in Jalna, he led a massively outnumbered force to victory. And get this, he later said that the Battle of Asai was a greater military achievement than even his famous victory at Waterloo. I mean, wow, that's the kind of heavy-duty history we're talking about here, embedded right in the land. So how do we get from epic historical battles to the modern day? Well, let's jump right into the two pillars of Jalna's modern economy. These are the twin identities that make it so unique. Its booming heavy industry and its incredible agricultural innovation. First up, let's talk agriculture. There's a reason Jalna is called the seed capital of India, and it's an amazing story. It all kicked off with the vision of one man, Dr. B.R. Barwale. He founded a company called Myco. Now, this guy looked at this dry, arid land, and where everyone else saw a problem, he saw potential. He pioneered hybrid seed technology that was a complete game changer for India's food security. I mean, it was so revolutionary that he actually won the World Food Prize for it in 1998. Just pure scientific brilliance meeting a huge national need. And then you have the total other side of the coin. Jalna is also the steel city. And what's wild is that this had nothing to do with finding iron ore in the ground. Nope. This was all about sheer entrepreneurial grit. Back in 1970, a man named Shantalal Pitti set up the very first factory. He saw a massive opportunity in re-rolling steel for construction. Well, others quickly followed his lead, and today the district is just this huge cluster of steel mills, pulling in a massive industrial workforce from all over the country. So here's the takeaway, the really crucial point, this incredible, almost unbelievable contrast. On one side, you've got the smoke and the fire of raw industrial might, and on the other, you have the quiet, super precise science of agricultural innovation. It's literally heavy manufacturing squaring off against high-yield crops. A huge migrant workforce next to deep local farming expertise. You've got these two totally different, powerful economic engines just running side by side in the same place. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how does a landlocked district, a place with no coast, manage all this? The answer is pretty incredible. It's all about some brand new, game-changing infrastructure that is basically turning Jalna into an inland port, connecting it to the entire world in a way that was never possible before. And right at the heart of this whole transformation is this one project, the Samruddhi Mahamarg. We're talking about a massive, 701-kilometer-long, high-speed expressway. It literally slices right through the state, linking Jalna directly to India's financial capital, Mumbai, and another major city, Nagpur. And the impact of this? It's just huge. The journey to Mumbai's ports, which are crucial for exports, used to be a grueling 16 hours. Today, thanks to this expressway, it's just 8 hours. 8! They have literally cut the travel time in half. That doesn't just make things faster. It fundamentally changes the entire logic of logistics for the whole region. But wait, the expressway is only half of the story. The other piece of the puzzle is this, the Jalna dry port. Now, when you hear dry port, don't just think of a warehouse. This thing is a fully fledged custom station for global trade built by the same authority that runs one of India's biggest seaports. What that means is goods can get cleared for import or export right there in Jalna, hundreds of kilometers from the sea. So, what does all this actually look like in practice? Well, it creates this beautiful, seamless chain. Check it out. Step 1, you produce the goods in Jalna. Doesn't matter if it's steel bars or hybrid seats. Step 2, they're whisked away on that super-fast Samruddhi Mahamarg. Step 3, they get cleared for global trade right there at the local dry port. And step 4, they're sent directly to international markets. It's an incredibly efficient system. So all this new infrastructure is paving the way for a really prosperous future. And this is a big but. To actually secure that future, Jalna has to face some very serious, very old local challenges. Problems that, a new expressway just can't solve on its own. Yeah, because just beneath the surface of this amazing economic success story, there are some pretty major fault lines. You see, Jalna is located in what's called a rain shadow region. It's semi-arid, which means it's chronically, constantly prone to drought. And that brings us to its number one most critical challenge: water. This chart right here, it tells a really stark story. Look at this. Only 7.8% of Jalna's farmland is actually irrigated. To put that in perspective, that number is way, way below the average for the rest of the state. So for a district that calls itself the seed capital, this massive lack of water creates just immense pressure and leads directly to real suffering and distress for farmers. And as you can imagine, that kind of economic pressure doesn't just stay in the fields. It has absolutely spilled over into the socio-political world. A village in Jalna called Antarwali Saradi has recently become the epicenter for the Maratha reservation movement, led by the activist Manoj Jirange Patil. Now, what our sources indicate is that these widespread protests are directly tied to a deep economic frustration within the farming community, frustration over what they see as limited opportunities and falling incomes. But even with these major hurdles, the path forward for Jalna is nothing if not ambitious. The plan is to really lean into its new strengths. They're looking at leveraging that new dry port for a boom in logistics and warehousing. They're building on the seed expertise with a new biotechnology park. There's also a big push into food processing, especially for local specialties like the sweet lemon or Mosambi. And maybe most critically, there are massive projects on the table, like the Marathwada water grid, that aim to finally tackle the region's water crisis head on. And so this brings us to the final crucial question, doesn't it? Jalna has built these incredible new bridges connecting it to the entire global economy. But the ultimate test, the real challenge, is whether it can now use that newfound strength to solve its oldest, deepest, most difficult local problems. The answer to that question is what will truly define the future of this unlikely economic engine. Thanks for joining us for this explainer from the Dume Media. We'll see you next time.